One episode. Coach, ano ba niyo? Okay. Naisip ko lang. Okay, game.
There's a saying that you don't get what you deserve, but you get what you are able to negotiate. In this episode, we're gonna talk about 9 tips that I can share with you to master negotiation, not just in life, but also in business. Because negotiation is one of the highest return on investment skills that you should learn as a person. Because do you believe that you're always selling yourself to your partner, to your boss, to your friends, to a client, or a girl that you're trying to hook up with, perhaps? You're always negotiating something with someone. You're trying to sell yourself. Being able to negotiate will help you earn more in terms of, for example, job salary, or if you have a business, when it comes to client deals, closing deals. It's the difference between making 100,000 to 1,000,000 if you're a good negotiator. Also, it saves you more, for example, on a home purchase or car purchase. For example, you're trying to buy a second-hand car or a house. If you're good at negotiation, the one you're negotiating with could actually budge to the price that you want. So they're negotiating to you instead of you negotiating towards them. And lastly, you win more in terms of where you want to eat with your partner, or where do you want to go in terms of vacation and what have you. Let's start off with the 9 powerful tips on negotiating and how you can master them right away if you just practice it. Let's start with the first one. The first one is the most important thing because I call it preparation, but we put it in what we call the I foresaw it framework. So I'll explain to you what the I foresaw it framework, how it actually works. Here's a saying by Ben Franklin, and he says, if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. And I want you to use this checklist to plan for any big negotiation. I'll put it here so that you can see what does the I foresaw it framework looks like. I don't need to explain further how it looks. Preparation will give you the confidence and influence that you need to push whatever that you want. This is made by Professor Seth Freeman. The I foresaw it framework starts with I, which is interest, F, which is factual and financial research, O is for options, R is for rapport, E is for empathy and ethics, S is for settings and scheduling, A is for alternatives to agreements, W is who, I is for independent criteria, and T is for topics, targets, and trade-offs. Here's more information about that. If you can Google about the I foresaw framework, it actually helps you prepare to negotiate. So that's number 1, the most important one. Number 2 is to be able to negotiate well, you need to hone your body language. We call it the 7-38-55 rule. Let me explain. People will like or dislike your communication based on words, which come up to 7%. What you say is just 7%. 38% comes to 38% your tonality and your face, how you look like. When you say you're happy, but then you look like you're sad, does it come out to a person that you're really happy, or are you just saying it that you're happy? And 55% of it comes from your body language. 7% words, 38% tonality in your face, and 55% your body language, how you actually project yourself as a whole. Tips for that is you want to stand up straight, you want to pull your back, you pull your shoulders back, you're not slouching when you're trying to negotiate with someone, you're making eye contact. Actually, if you're trying to make eye contact with someone, you're not looking them at each eye. You're looking at them straight in the middle of their eyebrows. That way, you're looking straight at them instead of just looking at one eye at a time. It's so hard to make eye contact if you're looking at an eye. So you want to look at in the middle of the eyebrows because it means that you're making eye contact to them. That's how they see it. Smile and give a firm handshake. A handshake is something you need to practice. If you have a friend, practice a firm handshake. Not too tight, not too loose, just about right. If you do that, you're going to be a dangerous person to deal with. Next thing that you need to learn about negotiation is using the word fair. The most powerful word in negotiations is the word fair. You want to say, for example, I want you to feel like you're being treated fairly at all times. Please stop me at any time if you feel like I'm being unfair to you, and we'll address it. Sounds fair enough? Another example of that would be, I just have a few questions for you. Sounds fair enough? You always ask them if it's fair for them. Fair means it's a win-win. Like you're winning, I'm winning. Because it's fair. It's not one-sided. It's not a win-loss. It's a win-win. Fair for me that I'm able to ask you a question. Fair for you that you're able to answer a question that I have for you. Show them respect. Set the tone. Use the word fair more often than not. Practice it really well. Using the word fair would be a very good bullet for you for whoever you're negotiating with. The fourth tip that I want to share with you to master negotiation is to make the first offer. Now, I know a lot of people will raise some eyebrows with this because old school advice says to wait for them to reveal the first number. You don't shortchange yourself. But new studies show that it's often better to go first, to strike first, due to a powerful, what we call anchoring effect. It's an anchor. The rule of thumb is if you know the bargaining range and you're really familiar with it because you've done your research on the industry rate, for example, go first at an extreme high or extreme low. Because when you go to that extreme high, it's not gonna shy them away. It's just that your starting point is really good enough for you. So you'll anchor the negotiation to that number. But of course, take it with a grain of salt as well, because sometimes it's still always good for them to reveal the first number first and then say that, for example, it's like this. Someone is willing to buy your company and says, oh, I'm willing to buy your company for 10 million. But initially, you only wanted 5. So you let them play it out because you're giving out the numbers and the valuation and such. But then initially in your mind, you only had 5. But then this person or this company is offering you at 10. So now you can change now your value to say, oh, I was thinking at about 20 million. But instead of saying, actually, that's fine because I started in my mind, I wanted 5M. But then now, you can now say you want to double it. In your mind, you're thinking that, okay, I was actually thinking 20 million. And now you're talking to a better negotiation because now they're going to think, oh, okay, I'm actually kind of lowballing him. Let's meet at the middle at 15 perhaps. Meeting at the middle is something great, especially if you started below what they actually wanted to negotiate with you. Sounds fair enough? Question people would normally ask is that, what if that kind of scares them because they offered 10 million, but then you're thinking 20? This is part of the negotiation. If someone says that, oh, I don't want to negotiate at that number anymore, forget it. Or like say, fuck off. That person or that company wasn't really interested in your company to begin with, or whatever product or service or whatever you're trying to negotiate. Because if they really want you, they will work towards a middle point, a meeting point between you and what they actually want. It's like a common ground between you. They want heaven, you want earth. So you meet at the middle ground in between. When you say that it might scare them off, don't think about that. It's a what if, or like it's a thought about overthinking something that hasn't happened yet. If they say, you know what, forget it, it's too much for us. They weren't really that firm on investing in you in the first place. Number 5, in terms of mastering negotiation, is this: ask open-ended questions. Now, what's an open-ended question? Understanding the other side's need is really crucial into any sort of negotiations. Never assume. Assuming is really a cardinal sin. Never assume anything in a negotiation. Never think of something and assume that that's the end of it. Ask questions to uncover creative solutions. This is the continuation of the 4th point of what if. You want to use what and how questions. What about this? Is this important to you? What about this work for you? Or how will we know if we're both in the same page or we're both on track? Use those open-ended questions. It sounds like you're asking them. You want to put the pressure on them. You want to put the ball in their court, not always with you. You want the least amount of time that you're thinking. Instead, you want them to be the one thinking. You want to push the envelope towards them. It's like a hot potato. You don't want to hold the potato that long because it's hot. You want to pass it on to them as much as possible that this is what I want. Think about it. Okay, we'll take it. And if they push back to you, you give it right back to them. So that's called giving them an open-ended question all the time. It's not like you're giving a statement that's already closed. Like when you say 20 million is my price, that's closed. What do you think? Does that work for you? Are we in the same page? Or they would say, I'm thinking about like 10. That's where the movement comes along. So that's the 5th one. Ask open-ended questions. The 6th point I want to make into mastering negotiation is to sidestep on what we call the killer questions. You know what the killer question is? So you want to avoid weak positions resulting from tough questions. What's a killer question? Number 1, how much are you currently making? That's a killer question. Or how much do you expect to make? Or how much are you willing to offer? That's a killer question. Don't ask those questions. Those are bad questions that you want to ask in a negotiation. Or like just with a partner, where do you want to eat? It's one of the worst questions you want to ask because your partner will say, I don't know. Depends on you. It's on you. You know I'm allergic to seafood. Now you don't bring me to seafood dinner because I can't eat any type of seafood. Or like I'm allergic to chicken. Don't bring me to no KFCs. Something like that. Those are killer questions. You want to sidestep those killer questions. How? Like I have a rule not to discuss that. That's one of the things that you don't want. You have a rule not to discuss this. Or I'd like to know like the salary bands for this one. Like what's your range in terms of your salary? What are you willing to play in terms of salary? Is it like 50 to 70,000? You know, you want to throw the ball at them. So you're sidestepping from the actual question. Instead of asking, how much are you expecting to make? You can ask them, what's the salary range for this type of role? Does that make sense? If it makes sense, leave a comment in the comment section down below. Seventh point in terms of master negotiation is this. You want to be soft on the person, but you want to be hard on the problems. You always treat your counterpart with dignity and respect. If there's a problem, focus on the facts, not opinion. Facts are better than opinion. It's one thing I learned with dealing with politicians, for example. Facts are more persuasive and less controversial. When you say that the sky is blue, you can't negotiate that to red. You're not living in Mars. Don't say this is like a very cheap company when you're applying for a job. Say comparable industry roles pay this amount, for example, 30 to 40,000 for this role. That's a standard rate for this type of position. Instead of saying you pay cheap because you're only paying 25,000. You can tell them that, you know, compared to other companies, they pay about 30 to 40,000. Maybe we can talk about that range. Sounds fair enough? What do you think? Number 7, be soft on the person but hard on the problem. Okay, the second to the last point that I want to share with you in terms of master negotiation is to vocalize potential losses from no deals. I would say this, like 100 deals that you make, I would say 97 to 98% of that will never come into fruition. And that's truth. I said in one of my videos that you're gonna encounter 1,001 disappointments or rejections in your life. And that's part of life. Till now, I'm still counting it. If we agree, list the types of benefits that you can get. And if we disagree, for example, you want to list like the benefits as lost plus other, pain points that comes with it. You want to use this formula to heighten emotions and you want to motivate people moving forward from this. What we call that is loss aversion. Loss aversion says that people go through extreme lengths to avoid perceived losses. You want to lose to a negotiation. So you want to vocalize potential losses from no deals. So use that formula. So you want to list, again, just to review, if you agree, list the benefits. If you agree on a certain point, like this is what you're going to get. Points A, B, C, D, and E, for example. And if you disagree, you want to list the benefits as something that's lost already or other pain points that come with it if you don't agree to some things. If you don't agree to this is what will happen. Point out those things. Those are important in terms of any negotiation. And lastly, for any negotiation that you want to master, you want to end positive. It's called the Oprah Rule. There's a description that our tendency to emphasize whatever occurred is something that's last on the list. In any sort of negotiation, don't take cheap shot. Don't complain or don't try to get more leverage at the end because you're gonna fail at it if you do. Oprah, she's famous as a negotiator who makes her last touch point a positive one instead of a negative one. Say something both indisputably positive and indisputably true at the end. For example, I'd love for us to be able to work this out in a productive manner so we can have a long and prosperous type of relationship. That's a good way to end it. Like you want this to be a relationship, even if you don't close out a deal, that you're not burning bridges with someone. I've made a lot of wrong decisions to burn bridges with people that I've negotiated with in the past just because I'm a sour grape. I hated that, we were supposed to close this, multi-million deal and then this guy comes in at the end and saying, no, we don't want to do this anymore. Forget it. And then you're counting your chickens already before they hatch and then you feel bad about it. Now you're not friends anymore. You're not talking. I've burned a lot of bridges doing that. You want to end always it in a positive thing. Like if you say that, even if we don't close out any deal, that's okay. Let's remain professionals and friends and peers in the industry in the end. And that's important because any type of negotiation will turn sour, even a relationship. That's why there's a lot of relationships that end really sour. It's because the negotiations went on as bad. No one is like budging into what someone wanted and, you force your way into something that the other partner doesn't want. And then it ends badly. Just a few side points. If you want to dive deeper into negotiations, there are 3 books that I recommend. One is Great Courses, The Art of Negotiating the Best Deal. It's by Seth Freeman. Second book is You Don't Get What You Deserve, You Get What You Negotiate by Chester Lewis Karras. And lastly, the third book is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, which most of these points that I got is from that book. There's a quote from Chris Voss' book and he says, "He who who has learned to disagree without being disagreeable has discovered the most valuable secret to negotiation. That's all I have for you today. If you think you found value in today's episode, make sure to subscribe to the channel and please leave a comment in the comment section down below. And I'll see you again in the next episode. Peace.